Okay, for this next bit, we're going to take a look at the registration section. So it's the register section, as we're calling it. And if you look at this right here, it's actually the part that says save the date, and it's a call to action. So if we take a look at it in our Figma file, you'll see that we have a div that's on the left, and that is the save the date bit. And it's got the register H2, the H3, or I should say the save to date H2, the register for early bird tickets H3, and then some paragraph text. And then on the right we have the button, which is going to be the button for the call to action. It is the call to action, this whole thing is. But anyway, so you'll see that we've got the magenta background, gold text for the H2. We've got that linen color or off-white color for the text that's the H3 and the paragraph. And then off to the right we have that wheat color for the button background, and for the text that's inside of it is that plum color. So, and then you'll notice also that it's inset a certain amount, and the H3 is the superior title text, and the H2 is already set up, it's regular to go, and then the paragraph is the deuterium text. So let me just quit that. Just quit a couple things. They're probably using memory on my computer. Okay, so let's go and take a look then. Let's jump back over here to our Phoenix code, and also I don't think I intended to open that so big. Let's close it up. Okay, I like to have things where I can just sort of touch the tabs on the top and stuff. All right, then we've got, this is the save the date section now. And let's go ahead and take a look at how we can make some changes for that. So let's scroll down, and we have the register part. And then first thing is first, let's go ahead and create something for section called register. So I'm going to create an ID called register. Let's spell it right. Register. And when I say create an ID, I mean an ID selector for register. And then I want to go ahead and give it the background color that it needs. And I'm just going to do, I think, background. I don't think I'm going to do all the other stuff. I'll just do the color of, let's give it the variable, and we'll do the magenta. That's what I said before. Yeah. So there's the background color. And because we have these two items that we want to sit side by side, we want to go ahead and make this so that it's a display of type of flex, so that we've got all of the text on the left and then the button on the right. So we will go ahead and do display flex. Right. And we're going to do flex wrap so that later, whenever we start to make some adjustments for the mobile friendly version, that it will wrap. So we'll say flex wrap is wrap. Tell it to wrap. All right. And the other thing that we can go ahead and do is in the event that it does wrap and so forth, we are going to also tell it to justify the content as center. Okay, so that's a good place, I think, to start for this content, to give it just, a good grounding. And then we're going to do some more stuff with the register parent. And I think that we need to address the div. All right, so if we look at the primary pieces that are inside of it, you see register has a div and has a div. So we're thinking about our flex children. Then the other thing that we need to consider is, let's do register div like that. And I'm going to first off go ahead and add some padding to it. It'll give both of these divs some padding, and I think maybe we could do like maybe 8% on the top or something like that, because right now you can see it needs more space around it, and then maybe 6% or something on the sides, I believe. One of the things also that we need to do is if you want these to sit side by side, you need to tell the first div to be a certain percentage. And if you were to go back to our Figma drawing, you would notice that if you remember back on this, if we, for instance, turned on our columns, if I go back to the MacBook Pro frame, we could go and you could see that we have 12 columns. We'll view those 12 columns, and you can see that it takes up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's about 60% if you don't count these columns out on the sides, because that's padding, or that will be, where it's sort of bumps in. Then I think what we can safely assume is that we're going to make the first one 60%. And so you might wonder, like, okay, well, how would I do that? Because I don't have a class or an ID on this. You could put an ID, but another way that you can do this is that you can also create something that, let's copy this real quick. I'm going to copy this selector. I can make register div, and then I can do as a pseudo, I could say first of type. And so it'll be essentially saying that it's the first, basically whenever it sees the type of div, so the first of that type, it's going to assign a width of 60%, like that. And then you can see that they end up sitting side by side, which is great. Now, the other thing too, you see that they're all wonky, and there's a problem here, because we've got the, if I were to come over here, you can see that I can see that this typography needs to be a different color, right? And I believe that in the Figma drawing, that type is gold, yeah. So if we jump back over here, we can make sure that we are setting up the register div, let's say, regardless of what it is, we'll just say the register H2 is going to be the color, and we'll do a variable and then dash gold, like that. And then now we can see the title, and that's good. Now the other thing is that we want to make sure that that we also have the typography for the H3 set up as well. So let's go ahead and do the register. Well, actually, before we do anything else, I think that we could take a look, and let's just see for this. This is an H3, this register for early bird tickets. That's using the superior. Here, let's just see what the information about this. Superior title, it's black. It's about 40 pixels. We'll have to come up with the equivalent of that. And then, not worried right now about the color, because the color will change, but that's something that we could take a look at and see if this is going to also be true of, say, this H3. It also is basically the same styling, and so we could make some essential decisions about that. And instead of doing some of the basics there just for register, let's go up here to that place where I found, or where I was starting to set general headings, and let's go ahead and make a general heading style for the H3, and we will do that as the font family. Actually, let's just go copy it. We had already done, I think oops, wrong direction. We'd already done an H3. Actually, it was for the H2, so I'm just going to copy some of this information. We'll do Let's just copy that for right. Well, let's just copy all of it and we'll get rid of what we don't need. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here for the H3s and we'll make sure that it's superior title. And you can immediately see that it's just happening on all of them, which is good. So I'm going to get rid of the color because we're just going to let it be the standard color. And you can already see that how helpful that's going to be just by having, I think, this pretty standard way of applying that, right? So font style is normal, and we can also take a look and see if we're comfortable with that size. And I think we might be, and we're probably going to want to get rid of some of the margins on it, knock those down a little bit. Yeah, let's just go ahead and we'll set the margin to, let's just set it to 0 for right now. And we can always go back and change that, but I think that that's probably what we're going to need just to get the spacing right. And then I think that on the H2s as well, one of the things that we need to do on these H2s is we need to also set the margin on those H2s. We need to set the margin to 0 as well, and then we can work from there to add margins. But I think that at least for this portion right here, it looks pretty good. We may want to add padding to some of these things, or I'm not going to look at all these others down below as examples of how we should change the overall H2 and H3, because those might get corrected with like some other padding and things like that. Something I am going to do, however, is let's go down to our register portion, and we can also add something here that says color. We'll just do a basic color on the typography, and we'll set that to our linen color, like that. And then essentially change the type for everything else, which is helpful. So I don't have to worry about that. And the other thing that I can do is for the buy tickets, I need to be able to set the buy tickets. So let's go over here and we will make a new one for register. And I think it's a button, right? So like this, and we can give that a background color of, I think it's the wheat color is what I'd said before. Let's see, we'll do the dash wheat. Yeah, that's that color. And then we can also give it text color. So we'll just say color, and we'll do that as a variable of dash plum. And then the other thing that we also need to do for that text is, here, let's open that up actually, take a look. The other thing that we need to do is we need to give it a style, and I think what's going to be helpful for us is to take a look at this superior title. So we're going to just copy the style here, and we're going to paste it down inside of the button. And then you can see automatically that it fixed that up, and then we're going to do the type size. Let's see what 1M looks like. And that might be a good size. And then the other thing that we need to do is we need to give it a little bit of padding. And we can say 1. Let's see what 1 rem looks like. Oh, and I should have, that's a little bit too big. Let's do like 0.5. I was going to say I should have made this rem, not M, like that. That looks about right. And then we want to probably soften those edges because other things are soft in the rounded edges with the typography and things like that. So we will give it a border radius let's say 5 pixels. We'll do that all the way around. And the other thing we can also do is I want to give it border color, so that the border color, because a lot of times buttons, depending on what browser you're in, it might want to do something with the border color. So we'll just say, let's just say border, actually. Yeah, I guess I'll do border color. Yeah, so border, and then we'll give it, excuse me, maybe 1 pixel solid, and we'll make it the same color as its background, which is that wheat color. And then that way, also, if we decided we wanted to change the color on hover or something, we could, if that was something important to us. And the other thing too that we need to do is we need to tell it not to have an outline. That's going to be important if you don't want it to automatically have an outline, so outline none. That's something that you may not want to do if that's a bothersome issue, like if you have ADA concerns or something. But I think that it's something that you want to get rid of. For certain kinds of browser experiences, it's going to automatically select it and have a strange outline. Another thing too that I think that I need to take care of is get that button so it's not sitting way up there at the top. And to do that, we need to look at the register divs, oops, not that one, that's the wrong one, register div rule. Right now it has padding around them, but I think that we also need to take a look at the alignment. So we could say align items, and we can tell it that we want them to be in the center, for one thing. And then we also want to align the content as well. And we want that to also be, actually we don't want it to be in the center. I think maybe we want to look at the maybe space around so that it will do that appropriately. And also that's something that will work if we end up moving it to a space where it is going to be vertically oriented, based later. Like if it does that, it's going to work a little bit better. Okay. So, and then when we do this also, we're going to have to do some media queries to deal with the way that this is cascading. So, but I think for right now, we're probably okay. And then if I wanted to see about making these two things a little bit closer together, I can go to the register. There's an H3 in here somewhere. Oh, you know what? I didn't do a register H3, so let's do something specific for register H3. And we'll take a look over here at the page. And before I start messing with the H3 though, because I'm realizing I don't like the relationship of the scale here, because I almost feel like the H3 is bigger than the H2. And so I need to decide, is that H2 actually a good size at that scale? And I think it's not. I think I could handle it being just a little bit bigger. It doesn't really start to grow a lot in size until, I don't know, somewhere in here. So let's jump back over here, and maybe right now the H3 isn't exactly what I'm going to focus on. So I was right here. So it's line 212. I'll come back to that. I want to take a look up here at my generic H2s. And maybe I want this middle number to get a little bit bigger, a little bit faster. So let's see if we can take that to maybe 2.8. And maybe the smallest size isn't 1.75, maybe it's 2. Let's see what that does whenever we kind of come over here, and let's take a look at, all right, so that's nicer because it's a little bit bigger. That heading level 3 right there, it's a little bit bigger than it was at its smallest size, which is fine. and then it gets bigger, I think, at a better scale. Now I do believe that we need to adjust the H3. I think that the H3, at least this H3 for sure, doesn't need to be that big. Maybe these other ones are okay. Let's take a look. Let's get back to this, okay? Okay, I'm gonna make an adjustment where it drives me nuts. Okay, anyway, I want it so that maybe it doesn't get quite so big. So instead of 2 rem, let's say that it gets only to maybe 175 rem at the biggest, possibly. Let's see how that looks, especially up here next to an H2. Problem is I'm not exactly sure. Okay. Yeah, so let's adjust just the H3 that's for the register. So let's do, I want to copy what we've got up here, and then because it keeps jumping around so much, just driving me a little bit nuts. Probably you too. I'm going to just copy this font size so it will stay on the H3 right here. Okay. That way it'll stay here and we can adjust it in real time. So maybe this one is going to be maybe 0.2 as it gets bigger. Maybe it doesn't need to get quite so big. Let's maybe go down to viewport width. Let's see how small does it actually get. I think maybe it can also come down to 1.75 viewport width for its scaling as well. And I think that's a better match, I believe. Now, I think that these, for the moment, are okay, but we could also potentially take this and see how this looks, this font size. We can see how it looks for the regular H3 rule, and let's just comment this one out. And that way we can always go back to it. I think that this one might be a little bit more conservative in scale, and I like this relationship better here, and I think that might be the right one. We'll just leave the old one in case we wanted to kind of use it as comparison and go back. And at the moment, we have the register H3 as a duplication of just the regular H3. So I think for the moment, I'm also going to comment that out, because then if we make a master change to all the H3s and we forget that we have this one, it won't also change this one. It'll be confusing. So anyway, I think that we may actually be done with this section, and we can move on in the next one to the speakers if we like the way this looks. And one of the things that is happening that I don't like is that this part up here was supposed to be significantly inset compared to what's happening down here, and so I don't care for the way that that's panning out. So I think that, you know, as part of making sure that the save the date register part is working, I think we also need to set maybe a max width. I think we were going to do that and I forgot, or I'm not sure. Anyway, but we're going to go up here to the fade, or no, it's the inset, sorry. This inset rule down here, and maybe we will set a max width on it. You could either set a max width here, or we could also set a max width on this inset. Let's try something like, just making something up right now, let's say 1200 pixels, and then let's see what happens when it gets to be over a certain size. 1200 pixels holds up okay. So let's just take it back down. I think it still bothers me though, like right around in here, that the width isn't a little bit tighter. I think when we get into here, it's, yeah, let's just see if we can get that a little bit tighter. So I want to take a look down by inset, and we've got the width at 80%. Here, let's pull it out just, oh, not that one. Pull this out just a little bit. I think maybe, let's just see what happens if we have the padding at like 10% all the way around, so that it's also 10% on the left and right. And that, I think that I like that a little bit better. It's a little bit tighter in, and there's a delineation that this is definitely set in more. Okay, so I think that we're good with all of that. And I think that that helps me clearly, you know, see that this is defined pretty well. And I like the size of all of the scaling and so forth. The only thing that might be a little bit big is this paragraph now in comparison with the other things. And you see how you can, sometimes you just kind of need to go back and forth a little bit as you're styling. And so let's come back up to the about portion. And for the font size, we're going to look for the font size on the paragraph. And I think that I want to make sure that its smallest is actually smaller. Here, let's just check and see if it gets smaller. Well, it's getting smaller. I think it's actually maybe this font size where it's, I have it set to 3 viewport. Let's maybe do it at 2.8 or maybe 2.7 even. 6. Yeah. Let's see how that looks. It's still pretty big comparatively, so I think I don't want it to be that large. So let's go back to about paragraph. All right, so the smallest is 1 rem. Let's take this down to like 2.3. Maybe 2.1 viewport. I think, yeah, I think that that might be better. So it stops getting quite so big. Heck, maybe we can just go back right down to 2 viewport. And that helps it so that it doesn't get quite so giant. All right. All right, so I think that that's a better I think that's a better solution for that. All right, and I think that now we're ready to move on to the speakers, which is going to be a little bit more fun and challenging, but fun.